Hello again, it's me, Zach. I'm sure you've all missed me very much. I'm back again with another ZakAttakk podcast. That's right, we're doing more edumacation. So, what is this week's podcast about? Well, viewer, I will tell you exactly what that's about. This week, we are talking about fans and fandom. Yeah. Exciting. Yes, I know it's not exactly the most riveting of subject, but it is something that I am currently having to do for college. So, you're all going to learn as well. Now, I'm going to be focusing on three particular fandoms. Now, of course, there are varying degrees of what you would call a fan, and we're going to delve into some of those today. But the fandoms I'm going to be focusing on are not, just a widespread. I'm not going to be going for nerd or geek or sport person. Yeah, I'm going to be going for three particular fandoms. One of the fandoms is there simply to put almost a blanket effect on fandoms in general. The other two are merely there for teaching purposes and using them as prime examples, as they are easier to talk about certain subjects. And those three fandoms are Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, and anime in general. That's right, anime in general. That's a bit of a broad subject, which is what I warned you about. I told you there was going to be a very broad subject, and there is. Now, specifically what I'm going to be looking at in fandom is something very particular, and that is how people are drawn to a fandom through a sense of belonging, while also becoming a bit of an outcast to the rest of the world, because they see themselves as an outcast because they like things that other people don't. However, by joining a fandom, they are, in fact, becoming not an outsider, but more of a collective. And another part that I will be talking about is specifically subdivisions in these fandoms, which you would consider elitists. Now, I'm not saying that all fans are elitist. On the contrary, there's fans that are very casual in their trade. But there are people, and I would consider myself, unfortunately, a bit of a snob when it comes to some particular things in fandoms. For example, I'm a bit of a comic book fan, and I can get a little bit rowdy when somebody starts talking about particular characters and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. However, that's not important. What we will be looking at here, specifically for the two book and film franchises, Harry Potter and The Hunger Games, is how an elitist subdivision can evolve through not necessarily an elitist appearance, but more of a collective appearance, a community, if you will. Now, many people would describe themselves as a fan of the Harry Potter franchise, if they're a fan of the Harry Potter franchise, of course. Not everybody's a fan of it, but if you're a fan of the Harry Potter franchise, you tend to be a fan of three different divisions. You tend to be a fan of the book more than the film more than the book, or both. And when it comes to these things, there can be some sort of elitism in them. For example, a person who has never read the books but has watched all the films will tell somebody who has read the books that they are a fan. And that person who has read the books may say, "No, you do not know what you are talking about, because I have read the book, and you do not know anything." And, this can be the case, and a lot of people who have read both the books and watched the films will interject and say, yeah, well, there are some things that are in the books that aren't in the films, but in that case it makes the films better because there's not as much waffling. And then you have the people who are only fans of the film will say, yes, he is correct. No random words for me to read. I only have to sit and listen and watch the pictures and it will tell me the story. And yes, yeah, they're right in that respect. You know, it is a condensed version of the media and it works in that sense. Yeah, and it is an interesting way to see it. However, this subdivision of these, you know, fan bases can be good and bad. You know, the people will join a fandom for various reasons. You know, they may be a fan of the book or whatnot, and they may look online and look at fan sites and have, you know, draw an opinion of the fan base from the fan sites, which, you know, makes perfect sense. You know, I'm not going to be part of a fan base purely based on the book. I mean, the book might be nice, but everyone who reads it might be a total twat. But that's not the point. These fandoms can be picked apart and analysed by certain audience reception theories. One in particular being a personal favourite of mine, because it is incredibly simple, is that of the Katz and Laserfield two-step flow. That's right, I said two-step flow. Now, I'm going to put a little diagram here. Now, as you can see, it's relatively simple. It is merely a representation of what happens when a mass media product like a book or a film is released. Now, here you have the mass media in the middle bit, and that projects out the message. And then it is interpreted by somebody who watches this mass media, who is known as an opinion leader. And their opinion will then be spread like a filthy virus to other people. And based on their opinion, whether it be positive or negative, will create a subdivision of opinion. And this subdivision of opinion will be that of, well, you say it's bad, I think you're wrong. I'm going to watch it for myself and see just how bad it is according to you, but I reckon it's going to be rather good. The other of that is, well, if you say it's bad, I suppose it is going to be bad. And vice versa. If somebody says, I really enjoyed it, it was really good, some people might say, well, if you say it's good, I'm going to go and watch it. And others may say, well, can't be that good, the first one was pretty shit. So, you know, it is a fickle system, but it makes a lot of sense. And this can be applied to a fandom, because if somebody posts on a Hunger Games message board on a fan site and says, personally, I think Catching Fire was the best book and or film, and others may cry, no, you are incorrect, because the first one was better, or I don't think you're right, but I have never read the book, I have only ever seen the film. And then others may agree and say, yes, it is the greatest of the books and also the film. Whereas others may say, well, I thought the book was fantastic, but the film was oh so not. It is again, a very fickle system. Now, there are a lot of ways, of course, that fans themselves can be analysed, but the fandoms, like I said, can have some elitism involved, which I explained with the Harry Potter franchise, which can be applied to the Hunger Games franchise. And that is mainly because those two series have a very broad demographic. The Harry Potter franchise is mainly for children, however, adults can enjoy it as well. I grew up with the Harry Potter series, and my parents both loved it. You know, there's a lot of love for Harry Potter in my house. However, there are some households where the children will love the books, and the parents are literally sitting there and going, you know, it can be quite broad. So the audience there is children to teenagers to adults. It's quite a broad demographic. Then you have The Hunger Games, which is a young adult novel. And due to the somewhat violent and adult themes that are featured in it, it is never really a children's book or film. It's more of a teenager film, something for a 13-year-old to a 21-year-old like myself to sit and watch or read. And you know that the adults can enjoy it as well, because it doesn't just have children in it. It has young adults, and it has very adult themes and very particular political statements involved in it, which will make it attractive to a slightly older audience. Which, of course, begs the question of how the audience is perceived for that. And that is a somewhat different audience to the Harry Potter franchise. And this relates to the two-step flow in a degree, because the parents might say, "Oh, we should go and watch The Hunger Games. I really like that book." And all the edgy teenagers will say, "Fuck off, Mum, I don't want to watch it. It's gross. I can't believe that you like it. And others may say, "Yeah, I really liked it too, Mum. Let's go and watch it tomorrow. That would be great fun." So, you know, there's a degree of the two-step flow there. And same goes for the Harry Potter franchise. You know, if the parents watch it, I remember when I first started reading the book, I was only a child, and my mum used to read it to me, and I learnt to read it by myself. So I was influenced by my mum in a positive way from the two-step flow. My mum had a positive opinion of it, and which led me to have a positive opinion of it. So, you know, there's a degree of it here. But let's put those two to one side for a minute. There are a lot of fandoms out there, one of which being an anime fandom. Now, the thing with an anime fandom, the reason I say it like that is because there's not specifically one anime fandom, because there are so many different anime out there, and I'm not just talking TV shows or one-offs or overs or actual movies, because there's so many of them. You know, in the Hunger Games and Harry Potter franchise, there are only 7 and 3 books and 8 and 4 films. So it's easy to pin those down because they're in set blocks. You know, they have specific starts and ends. Whereas if somebody is a fan of Gurren Lagann, they might like Kill la Kill. However, they might not like Kill la Kill because they might think that the animation from Trigger is not as good in Kill la Kill, or it's better in Kill la Kill than Gurren Lagann, so they like Gurren Lagann less than Kill la Kill. That's just one. That's just one studio with 2 different anime. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of anime out there, like stupid amount. So you can't just pin that down into one box. However, there are a lot of subdivisions, as I was explaining with the others, in an anime fandom, who very much apply to the Liza's Fields two-step flow, which is a lot of people will read the manga first, because that's the first thing that gets released before the anime comes out. And those who read the manga, a lot of them can be very elitist about it and be, I read the manga before the anime was even released, so I already know what's going to happen. And others will say, well, I read the manga as well, and I was really excited about watching the anime because I really wanted to see the animation and see how well they did it and how well they adapted it and who they got to voice people. So it's not, it's not hard to see the similarities. And to mention subdivisions, this is not to say that there aren't these subdivisions in the Hunger Games and Harry Potter fan bases, because boy are there. Because in the anime fandom, there are so many subdivisions. There are people who cosplay, there are people who do fan art, there are people who write fan fiction, there are people who parody the TV show, there are people who will review it, there are people who will completely destroy it in reviews, there are people who will make entire fan sites about it, and they will either blast it or destroy it, or they love it and spread it all over the place. And there are people who, unfortunately, draw porn, which, it's porn of anything. You can find it. I mean, I'm going to stop here. But in the anime fandom, there are a lot of subdivisions. More so than in the Hunger Games and the Harry Potter fandoms. And in doing so, it creates an incredibly interesting relationship with the audience. Because with all of these different subdivisions, there are so many different opinion leaders. Which means there are so many different people taking those opinions and crafting their own. Which means there are so many more influences. And so, that entire fandom of the anime fandom, so, for the easiest way to describe it, is so incredibly broad because of the huge amount of influence for it. I mean, the reception that some anime gets in Japan is completely different to the way that the reception it gets in America or in England. It will evolve in its own way, as does anything. Because of the huge amount of anime, there is just such a huge difference between those three different fandoms, while all being connected by that same subdivision network of elitists and non-elitists. However, it does all boil down to the fact that people will flock to these fandoms not only because they enjoy the medium of the whatever that they watch, but because they want to be part of a community, because they want to feel like they belong somewhere, because a lot of people in these places feel like outsiders in their own homes or in their own friend groups. And so they create new friend groups with people who are interested in the same things. And it creates a community. It creates an engulfing community of all of those things. And it's both good and bad. Should be taken with a pinch of salt. And as a recommendation for anybody who is part of a fandom, the best way to be in something like that is to not be elitist about it. It is to be accepting, not just of the others who are in your fandom, but of others outside of your fandom who are not part of your fandom, or who are not part of a certain subdivision of your fandom. To be more accepting of the entire appreciation of a single medium, or various mediums of similar things. And so, I guess that's the message I'm trying to get across. But hey ho, that's not entirely what... oh well. Oh, okay. So, time to wrap things up, I think. thank you all again for watching. If you find these talks interesting, then, let me know on Twitter, Facebook, comment section, send me a message, I don't know. Just, contact me in one of the various means that you can. If you want, you can give that subscribe button a little tickle. Let me know that you like the video. Give it a thumb, or maybe 2. If you don't, I'm not gonna judge you. It's your call. So I hope to see you again on the next ZakAttakk podcast, assuming I ever do one. Bye.